They knelt before we said a word. The ramp had barely touched the sand. The dust was still in the air, and 10,000 of them went down at once, foreheads to the ground, in a silence so complete I could hear my own heart. We had crossed half a galaxy to land on a dead-looking desert. We did not expect to be worshipped for it. This is what we found on AUREXIS Prime, and we're still trying to understand it. Exploration Log, AUREXIS Prime. Vessel, Aurelia 4. Status, First Contact. The scans had promised us nothing. A dry world under a hard yellow-white sun. The kind of star that burns hotter than ours, that throws sharp black shadows and makes metal glow like it's lit from inside. A desert planet. We almost skipped it, but desert worlds are stubborn things. With so little water, they hold a wider band where life can hang on. And life here hadn't just hung on, it had built. We saw the first tower from orbit and thought it was a mountain. Then we saw the second, and the third. A whole horizon of them, too straight to be stone the wind had made. We came in low over the dunes, and the desert turned to gold. Spires, obelisks, statues the size of cliffs, all of them standing straight up out of the flat sand, all of them reaching for the same sky. A city built like a hand held open to the heavens. Whatever lived here, they'd spent everything they had pointing it upward. Reyes set us down on a ridge above it. We meant to study them from a distance, to watch, to learn, to stay careful. We never got the chance to stay careful, because they were already coming. They came up the slope in a long line, and we got our first real look at them. Tall, upright, built something like the big cats and lizards of old Earth crossed into one. Long heads, golden eyes, scaled skin under cloth and beaten gold. The ones in front wore masks shaped like their own faces, only larger, only perfect. Priests. We'd learn the name later. For now, they were just figures of gold walking toward 4 very small humans. Okafor wanted to step forward. Vance wanted to step back. Reyes told us to hold. So we held. And the line stopped a dozen paces away and folded to the ground. Not in fear, in welcome. One of them rose again, the tallest, and lifted a hand toward our ship, toward the hull. That's when I understood what they were seeing. Our ship had come down out of a hard yellow sun, and the new plating Vance had fitted on Aurelia 4 was bright, mirror bright, catching the light until it burned. To them, a shining thing had descended from the sky, exactly where the old stories said it would. We didn't know the stories yet, but they'd been waiting for them to come true for a very long time. There's a thing that happens on Earth. When a people who have never seen the outside world suddenly meet its machines, its wealth, its sky-born arrivals, they don't always see strangers. Sometimes they see gods. It happened in the Pacific, less than 100 years before we ever left home. Islanders watched cargo fall from the sky out of foreign planes, more wealth than they'd ever known, and they built a faith around it. They waited for the bright giver to return. Some of them are still waiting. We'd read about it once, in a quiet room, as history. We were about to live it from the other side. The priests led us down into the city, and the city swallowed us. Up close, the scale broke something in my head. The statues we'd seen from orbit weren't statues of kings. They were all the same figure, over and over, 1,000 times. A tall shape with arms raised, and above its head, carved into every single one, a small bright thing coming down from above. Doorways were cut for bodies twice our height. The streets ran straight as spears, all of them aimed at the heart of the city. And everywhere, on every wall, that same shape falling from the sky. Okafor said it first, very quietly. They didn't build the city. They built a prayer. And we just walked into the middle of it. The crowd grew as we walked. They lined the avenues, thousands of them, and not one of them shouted. They just watched us pass with those golden eyes, and where we stepped, they knelt. A wave of bowing that moved with us down the street, like the city itself was lying down in our wake. It's a strange thing to be holy. It doesn't feel like power. It feels like being held very gently inside a fist that could close. Reyes felt it before the rest of us. "Nobody confirms anything," she said, low, not moving her lips. "We don't say yes. We don't say we're anyone. The second they think we lied about being gods, we stop being gods." Vance was already counting exits, already measuring the distance back up the ridge to the ship. Sato was looking at the children, because there were children here. Small ones, scaled and bright-eyed, scratching shapes into the sand at the edge of the crowd. The same shape. A little ship falling from a little sun. They learned it before they could walk. One of them looked up at Sato and held out a fistful of sand with the little ship drawn in it, the way a child holds out a drawing for someone to be proud of. Sato crouched down to look. She didn't say anything. She told us later it was the worst moment of the whole day, being thanked by a child for a promise we hadn't made and couldn't keep. This wasn't a trick someone was playing on us. This was the truest thing these people had, and we just landed in the middle of it, by accident, looking exactly like the answer to a prayer 10,000 years old. They brought us to the temple. I have stood under big things before. I have stood in the shadow of a sleeping titan and felt the ground breathe. This was different. This was made on purpose, by hands, to make you feel exactly this small. The temple rose out of the city center like a second mountain, columns of gold and pale marble, each one wide as our ship, holding up a roof we couldn't see the top of. Sunlight came down through high cuts in the stone in long, hard blades of gold. And at the far end, where all the columns pointed, all the streets pointed, all the statues pointed, it stood. The god Colossus. A figure of solid gold, taller than anything else they'd built, its head among the high windows, its arms raised to the open sky. The same shape from the streets, from the walls, from the children's drawings, but here, finally, at its full size. A god the size of a mountain, waiting with its arms open. And the priests walked us straight toward it, through a crowd that filled the whole vast floor, and the crowd went down on its knees, row after row, all the way to the base of the giant. Then the tallest priest turned to face us, and he knelt too. The last one standing, the high one, the keeper of it all. He went down before 4 tired humans in dusty suits, and 10,000 voices made a sound I will never forget. A single low note held, like the whole world exhaling at once. Sato whispered, "What do we do?" And Rhea said, "Nothing. We do nothing. We are not gods." But the temple did not agree. It was Okafor who broke the spell, because Okafor can't stand in front of something old without trying to read it. While the rest of us were caught in the Colossus, she drifted to the side wall, into the shadow behind the high priest's place, and she'd gone very still. "Reyes," she said, "you need to see this." The back wall of the temple was covered, floor to ceiling, in carving. Not decoration, a record. Generation after generation of it, the oldest at the bottom, worn nearly smooth, the newest near the top, still sharp. It told the whole faith in pictures. The sky, the bright thing coming down, the people kneeling, the promise that it would come again. And Okafor put her hand on the oldest panel, the one at the very bottom, the first thing anyone here had ever carved. The bright thing that came down from the sky 10,000 years ago. It wasn't us. It wasn't our ship. The shape in the oldest stone was wrong. Wrong in a way that made the back of my neck go cold. Longer, stranger, built along lines no human yard ever drew. Something had come down out of this sky long before the Aurelia was ever a thought in anyone's mind. Something real. And these people had spent 10,000 years building a world to welcome it back, and gotten us instead. That's the part the old stories on Earth never told straight. We grew up on tales of explorers mistaken for gods, of natives falling to their knees before a sail on the horizon. But scholars went back and looked, and most of those stories fell apart. The strangers rarely claimed to be gods. The myth got built afterward, by people trying to make sense of something that had already happened to them. A faith doesn't need a real God to start. It only needs a wound. Something that came and changed everything and left. Whatever had come down on AUREXIS in that first carving, it had left a wound this deep. And the people had spent 10,000 years dressing it in gold and waiting for it to come home. We weren't their God. We were just the next bright thing to fall out of the right sky at the right time. And somewhere in the back of my mind, that frightened me more than any monster ever has. Because it meant the real one was still out there. We weren't alone with the wall for long. A hand caught my sleeve from the dark behind the carvings, small, quick, pulling. One of them. But this one wasn't wearing gold, plain cloth, no mask. Eyes that moved too fast, checking the priests, checking us. There are always a few. In every faith that ever swallowed a world whole, there are always a few who look at the bright thing and think, what if it's just a stranger? They learn to keep quiet. They learn to hide. And when something cracks the story open, they're the first to find you. This one didn't have our words, but it didn't need them. It pointed at us. Then at the oldest carving, the wrong-shaped ship. Then it shook its head, slow and certain. You are not the one. Then it pointed up, past the Colossus, toward the high windows in the hard yellow light, and it pressed both hands flat together and pulled them apart like something breaking. Whatever the first one was, it didn't come to save us. We were starting to understand, and that was exactly when the high priest noticed where Okafor's hand was resting. On the bottom carving, on the secret under the whole religion. His golden eyes went from her hand to the wrong-shaped ship, to our 4 small human faces, and something moved behind them. Doubt. And doubt, in a place like this, is the most dangerous thing there is. He spoke one word, and the held note of the crowd broke. I don't know what the word meant, but I know what it did. The kneeling stopped. The bowing stopped. 10,000 golden eyes came up off the floor and turned toward us at once, and the welcome in them was gone. A God who turns out to be a stranger isn't a disappointment. It's a blasphemy. Move, Rhea said. Now, toward the doors. Don't run yet. We moved, and behind us, From somewhere deep in the temple, something else moved too. Something big that had been kept and fed and waited in the dark beneath the Colossus. I caught one look at it as we reached the columns. Low and long and gold-eyed like the rest of them, but huge. A beast bred to guard the holy place, all muscle and scale, already up on its feet. The Temple Guardian. The thing they let out when a false god needs to be sent back to the sky in pieces. "Now you run," Reyes said. We ran. The doubter ran with us. It knew the ways we didn't, the side passages, the servants' cuts, the gaps between the great columns where a small body could slip and a big one couldn't. We went out through the back of a god, through corridors lit by those same hard golden blades of sun, the roar of the Guardian and the roar of the crowd folding together behind us into one sound. Twice the passages narrowed to a slit, and twice the Guardian hit the gap behind us hard enough to shake gold dust down from the ceiling. It couldn't follow. It was too big for the spaces its own makers had built for smaller things. There was a lesson in that somewhere. We didn't have time to learn it. Vance had the ship warming before we cleared the last wall. We came out into the open avenue, into the full weight of that yellow-white sun, and the whole straight road lay ahead of us, pointed, of course, at the temple at our backs. And as we hit the open, something happened that I'll think about for the rest of my life. The light shifted. For one moment each year, their priests had told us nothing, but the city had told us everything. Every street, every statue, every window cut at exactly the right angle. The sun dropped into a notch high in the temple wall, and a single shaft of gold ran the whole length of the building and struck the face of the god Colossus dead center. The day the god comes home. We had landed on it. That was why they'd been so sure. Not a coincidence. A calendar. 10,000 years long, carved in stone and sunlight, and we'd fallen out of the sky on the one day it pointed to. We didn't stop to feel the weight of that. We climbed the ridge with a holy city screaming behind us, and we lifted off into the hard, bright sky, and AUREXIS fell away beneath us, gold and waiting and wrong about us in a way we could never fix. We left AUREXIS Prime behind, but it did not leave us. Somewhere ahead, another world is waiting, and the Aurelia is already moving toward it. But this time we carried something with us, a picture copied off the oldest stone in their temple, the first bright thing, the real one, the shape that came down from a sky 10,000 years before we did and started a faith and left. We told ourselves for a while that it was nothing, that every world has its myths, but we'd seen a sky that knew our ship's name before we spoke it. We'd seen a hunter that didn't belong to its own world. We'd seen a people bury the sky itself because something had once come down out of it. And now we'd seen that something, drawn from memory, in gold, by hands that worshipped it. For 3 worlds we'd called it coincidence. We don't call it that anymore. Whatever it was, it had been here first, on AUREXIS, and on the worlds before it. Always first, always gone by the time we arrived. And on the next world, I think we already knew, in a way none of us said out loud. It had been there too. If you want to travel with us aboard the Aurelia, subscribe. A new world every week.